What's up, everybody? Um, I know I just posted a video, part two, for one of the aircraft systems. Um, but I wanted to do a second video on something else that has kind of been, I don't know, on my heart or just in my head. I don't know. I wanted to do a little bit of a different video. So, for those of you that know me, like personally know me, not just know me from the channel, and you know my background, excuse me, and you know that I was military before getting into the 7.6 world. I served 10 years in the Air Force as a KC-135 boom operator. During those 10 years, I accumulated something around 2,600 hours. About 1,000 of them were considered combat hours, meaning they were flown in support of or directly in combat areas and combat zones. Now, realize that I only did that for 6 years where I was deploying to those areas. So when I joined active duty back in 2003, and I was first went through tech school and all that stuff, and did all my training, got qualified, and then I went to Fairchild Air Force Base to the 93rd Air Refueling Squadron, and I was there from the end of '03 to the beginning of '09. During that time, I went to instructor school, upgraded, and did all that stuff. But during my 6 years there, I deployed. I don't remember how many times. It was a lot. At one point, I was averaging something like 245 days away from home. Maybe not necessarily overseas on a deployment, but I was just away from my home about 245 days a year on average, which is a lot now that I think about it. After I left Fairchild, I went down to Altus, Oklahoma, which is Altus Air Force Base, and they had that's our schoolhouse. That's where you would learn to be a boom, and that's where everything would start, right? So that's where I fell in love with instructing, and I fell in love with teaching in general, and getting that light bulb moment to show up. And that's what has driven me to be the instructor I am now. And again, for those of you who don't know, I teach 7.5, 7.6. I learned the 7.3 at one point, but 7.5 and 7.6 have always been the keys that I've used in the civilian side. If you don't know what a 135 does, it does things. Well, let me actually get there. It does things like this. It refuels fighter aircraft, heavy aircraft, in support of different missions around the world. And they don't get the credit for a lot of things because people don't know what a 135 is or what it does. They may know that we refuel planes in flight, but the average person doesn't understand what it takes to do that. It's a lot more difficult than just having an airplane pull up to a gas station and take fuel. And I say that kind of lighthearted, but at the same time, if you've paid any attention to the news or Facebook book or anything, I'm sure you've seen that there was a KC-135 mishap that happened in Iraq or over Iraq where we lost one, where it went down and we lost 6 crew members on it. So, military does things a little bit different, right? Civilian world, we have notes, and we have warnings, and we have cautions, and we have different things, memory items, and whatever else. And the military has, all of that stuff too, but we would call our books -1s. It was KC-135, blah, 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 -1. And you had your in-flight and your reference, -1s. Your reference was all of your systems, and then your in-flight was all the stuff you do in flight, or vice versa. Hell, I don't remember. It's been so long. Your FCOM, that's what it was. So like FCOM 1, Volume 1, in the civilian world would be like our reference -1. And then your in-flight would be like your FCOM 2. Where it does all the system descriptions and all that stuff. In those books, we would have cautions and warnings. Cautions generally meant you're going to break something if you don't listen to the caution. Whether it's going to be, you're going to hurt a person, or whether you're going to break a part of the airplane or do damage to an aircraft system, whatever. That was a caution. And then a warning was potential loss of life. Now, I don't know what happened to Zeus 95. And I won't know until the report comes out and we're able to look at it and read it. And I won't speculate on what happened. At least not the way some of these aviation experts do. In those -1s, there is a warning that says flying 2 aircraft within close proximity is inherently dangerous. Every day that a 135 takes off is a day where tragedy can strike. The airplane was built in the 50s. The last one rolled off, I think, in 63. And if we want to think about that, so that's 40, 50, 63 years ago is the newest one. There's been upgrades, and they do a hell of a job in Oklahoma City of breaking them down and rebuilding them and going through depot and all that stuff. I get that. But the airplane, the airframe itself is 63 plus years old. Every day that aircraft takes off, there is a potential for something bad to happen. That's with every. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying that facetiously. I'm saying that in a way where I understand that every airplane runs into that same thing. Every takeoff, every landing can be a dangerous thing. But it's not every airplane that takes off knowing that it's going to be within 25 feet of another airplane at 400 plus miles an hour at 30,000 feet at 63 plus years old. The tanker community, and I'm going to include the KC-46 and the KC-10 as well. The tanker community is so small in comparison. I think when I was active, there was only 700 to 800 of us, which I know doesn't sound like a lot or doesn't sound like a small number, But when you're talking about a military or a branch of service that is, big, I think, you figure, I don't know how many people are in the military anymore, but it's like 1.3 million, something like that. 700 people, not a lot. You got to know people. Like, you got to know frickin' everybody. When you would deploy, you would constantly see people come in and out and rotate in and out, and there was always somebody that you knew but you didn't know. Hey, I've seen you before. Weren't you out here during this time period? You may not have known them like personally, but you knew them. I've been out since 2012. September of 2012. 14 years. Almost. It doesn't even seem real that it's been that long. It has just flown by. But I still feel a connection to the tanker community. And I will always feel that connection to the tanker community because of how small we were, because of how close-knit we were. Aviation in general is small, even in the civilian world. I know guys in probably 100 different companies, or 50 different types of aircraft, because of serving with them in the military and having them come out into the civilian world and start flying big airplanes or private airplanes or GA aircraft or whatever. And I have all these different perspectives from aviation now. It's awesome. It is so awesome. But because I have that feeling of being connected to the tanker community and being out as long as I have, it's one of those things where I've been out long enough now that most of the people I knew that were in the 135 have moved on. They've either gone to the KC-46 or they've gone to either retirement or separation, whatever. They're not in the community anymore. They're not flying the airplane anymore. So when I saw the news of the accident, I was like, okay, I probably don't know anybody that's on it. But what's funny is that didn't matter. You still have this gut-wrenching feeling. Because you know what they were going through. You know what was happening on the airplane. And it's one of those things where it doesn't matter how long I will be separated from that aircraft. Anytime there is something like this, there's always going to be that sinking feeling in my chest. And that nauseating pit in my stomach. And there's always going to be that mourning of the loss, regardless of whether or not I knew them or not. There were 6 people on that airplane. And if you don't know, the aircraft is usually only 3 people. It's a pilot, a co-pilot, and a boom operator. But there were 6 people on the airplane at this particular time. 3 of them were attached to the Ohio National Guard, 121st Air Refueling Squadron, or Air Refueling Wing. The other 3 were out of Florida. I believe they were active duty. And from what I saw, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say they were the 99th Air Refueling Squadron, which used to be out of Robbins, Georgia when it was there, and then it got moved, and Like it got shut down and reopened and whatever. But they were out of Florida. I believe they were active duty. $13 years ago, there was another 135 that went down. Shell 77. Shell 77 went down May 3rd, 2013. It had a yaw damper problem, had increased Dutch roll, eventually broke the tail off the back of the airplane and lost 3 crew members on that. And that was Captain Voss, Captain Pickney, and Tech Sergeant Herman Mackey. In these videos, and just every day when I get up, I wear a bracelet. I have this KIA bracelet that I wear for Trey. That was the first aircraft mishap of a 135 since the 90s. And it was the first aircraft mishap that ever had someone on it that I knew. Trey was not like a personal friend of mine. I knew him in passing. I had seen him, at either different events or deployments or whatever. Like I'd interacted with him, had conversations where he was a part of them, and got to see his personality and stuff like that. So that one affected me a lot, because that was the first one that, I get the names and I'm like, oh shit, But the loss of this one, it feels the same. It's weird how a community can be that way, and how you can feel attached to a community that you haven't been a part of for the last 14 years. And you're going through the news cycle, and you're looking at the news stories, and they're saying, first they were doing rescue efforts, and you're hoping that it'll be different. You're hoping that they'll find somebody, that somebody would have survived. And then you get the reports of they found 4 of them. They didn't have the other 2. And then you're like, okay, there's still hope. There's still that feeling there that there's hope. But in the back of your head, you understand what's probably happened. And then they come out and they say all 6 have been confirmed. It's hard. I can't imagine the people that knew them, their families, their friends. I can't imagine the pain, the loss that they're going through right now. Here are the 6 airmen on Zeus 9.5. The top row are the 3 from the Ohio National Guard. Captain Seth Koval, Captain Curtis Angst, Tech Sergeant Tyler Simmons. The bottom are the 3 that came from Florida, or they're based in Florida. That's Major John A. Klinner. Sorry if I'm messing that up. I believe he went by Alex. Captain Ariana Savino. and Tech Sergeant Ashley Pruitt. These 6 airmen gave their lives in service to this country, to the United States. Whether you want to agree with what's going on in the world or not, that is no concern of mine. It does not change the fact that these 6 airmen will not be going home, and that their families will not see them again. Keep their family in your thoughts and in your prayers. I'll put some information in the description that are different GoFundMes and stuff for the different families of these individuals. If you want to donate to them, thank you. If you don't donate to them, it is what it is. I get it. I'm just giving the option. There's a saying, or not a saying, when you're done with refueling, there's a call out when you're done. That call out is boomstone latched, leaving position. I guess we can leave it at that.